The one thing about the Mystics is they don't need to change up their attacking game plan. That potentially could be their downfall.
The criticism of them has been exactly what you're saying, that they're top tier players who've come straight into coaching at the highest level.
I think another key for the Steel is they need a marquee defender. They'll be looking at a pillar down that defensive end.
I just don't know if there's any room for her. I mean, she only got 38 minutes on court across the series against England and Australia.
Kimmy Order, just work rate, repeated effort. Her defence as a centre is amazing.
Do we really think that in 3 years' time she's going to be one of the top 4 defenders in New Zealand when you've got the likes of Paris Mason and Kara Stythe?
And I think we've got to throw them all in there. And so in that case, you've got to have Stythe and you've got to have Hall.
Nau mai ki te hōtaka o te Nditi Poro Kiwi. I'm Bridget Tunnicliffe. After 15 rounds, 45 regular season matches plus an elimination final, we're down to the final 2. The Mystics and Pulse will meet each other for the first time in a grand final. Pulse hosts the Auckland-based side in Wellington this Sunday afternoon. 2 days later, Silver Ferns trialists will be named as well. Joining me this week to preview the grand final and which players might make this year's Silver Ferns squad are former New Zealand men's coach Dion Te Whetu and RNZ all-rounder Penny Miles. Kia ora kōrua. Just want to kick it off with a quick review of the elimination final, Mystics versus Tactics. Penny, I actually really felt for the Tactics. They led by 3 going into that final quarter. And, you know, looking back at that game, I don't know if there's a lot more they could have done.
Outstanding performance from the Tactics, and I just so wanted them to be able to really hold on in that final quarter. But we've talked about it before, the Wiki factor. They just couldn't stop her in the end. But, I mean, a really credible performance by the Tactics that I think they can be proud of.
Yeah, Dion, even though they had that 3-goal advantage, you kind of felt like that the Mystics were building up to something, and we just saw it in that final quarter. That's how dangerous they are.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think there was just it was kind of like who was going to break first, and unfortunately, it just felt like the Tactics had that one mistake, and then it just capitulated from there. But for my thinking, I think you know, if you looked at Paris Lokatui, like that Pulse game when Paris went into Goal D. She made such a difference, a huge difference, and then they moved her again, and you know, again when she was moved in that game, it just I think that was where things fell apart. Hindsight's a great thing.
Yeah, Lokatui for a wing defence, goal defence slide maybe, Silver Ferns. We'll talk about that later. Looking ahead to the grand final this weekend between the Mystics and Pulse. The last time the teams met was when the Mystics beat the Pulse by 10 goals in Auckland. Penny, I'm not sure if there's a clear favourite. I guess in my mind, I think it's the Mystics, but only just. It's not going to be easy to win in Wellington.
Yeah, it's hard to see how the Mystics don't have the psychological edge with that last performance because it was so dominant. And obviously, I think they'll get so much confidence from coming through the Tactics game. The Pulse, on the other hand, they've just got to find their best. And I said this before the game with the Tactics last round. Coming up against the Mystics, you've just really got to be able to hang in there all the way to the last quarter and hope that the pressure, you know, will be enough to have them make the mistakes. But if they get any kind of lead, I think, you know, that's it.
Yeah, Dion, I think in my mind, Kelly Jackson is key to a Pulse victory. I think the only quiet game she had all season, she's been fantastic this year, but the only quiet game was that last game against the Mystics, and Grace Wiki sort of shut her out, really pinned her on her back for a lot of the game. What do you see is key between the battle between Jackson and Wiki?
It's the pivotal battle, and I don't think Kelly will let Grace get any upper hand in the game. That's just, you know, my opinion, and you know, I think Kelly will look to get on top of Grace. Their outside Ds will work really hard if they watch that Tactics game, and they will have. They'll take a lot away from that, because the one thing about the Mystics is they don't need to change up their attacking game plan, and I don't think they will. And I think that potentially could be their downfall in this final as well.
Yeah, and I think Waitamonu in the background as that defensive specialist, she's so smart and she'll really put the Pulse defenders through the ringer this week and try to get them prepared for that battle. Yeah, looking forward to it. I just hope it's close this year. The last two grand finals have been, 18 goals, something like that. Yeah, all I want is a close grand final. So fingers crossed. Looking ahead a little bit to 2025 and recruitment, teams like the Steel or Stars, came bottom of the ladder this year. I'll start with you, Penny. Which players might be targets for teams like that?
Yeah, well, you've got to think they've both got to try and get a strong goal shoot to get things underway, don't you really? Particularly the Steel. So you've got Martina Salmon kicking around, haven't you? She could be a target for the Steel.
It's so tricky for the Steel, right? Because they've been very loyal to George Fisher, but I don't know how certain they're going to be that she's even going to be ready for next season. So they're going to have to think very carefully about that. I'm sure they are already, but they can't afford to sort of hope that she's going to be ready for next year. Dion, players that franchises like that might be targeting?
Yeah, I agree with Penny. I think someone like Salmon. Look, I would even be looking at Ellie Bird.
Yeah.
I think another key for the Steel is they need a marquee defender, and I think that that's what they'll be looking at, is they'll be looking at a pillar down that defensive end, and then they'll be building forward down through to the attack end from there. So I'd think a marquee defender. They'll want to probably add another mid-quarter, and then I'm pretty sure Fisher will be back. So I hope she will be back. I think she's quite different to any other shooter that we have in the ANZ. But yeah, I'd say they'll be looking for another holding shooter for that franchise as well.
Yeah, totally agree with you on them needing a marquee defender. They leaked so many goals this year. I would love it if franchises in New Zealand could target really high quality internationals like a Fumi Fidoju from England. She would be so great for the competition. It would be great if those players could sit outside of the salary cap so that they could actually be offered some really decent money to lure them here. Even if it puts a few noses out of joint in New Zealand and they're actually paid a little bit more than our top New Zealand players, it might be worth it. But just the way the salary cap is managed now, I don't think they're able to do that. I guess it's not only player recruitment, it's coaches. There's 3 ANZ teams who don't have head coaches in place yet. Tactics, Steel and Stars. The news about Kitty Wills came out a few days ago that she's heading to the Queensland Firebirds in Australia, which I think will be great for her development. So who might take over those roles at those 3 franchises next year? I'm thinking maybe a Julie Seymour, a Donna Wilkins, Rob Wright, or does he prefer to be an assistant coach? Te Huinga Rickett, would that be too soon? Dion, last episode you were saying that there really needs to be some fresh faces. Is there anyone you'd like to see?
Yeah. Look, there's plenty of people in New Zealand that are capable of stepping into those roles, but it's just whether they get those opportunities or not. And I think we need to, if we're looking at who the best netball country is in the world, it's Australia, and they have a very strict pathway over there that everyone must follow. I hope that we see coaches go into those roles that have actually done 1 or 2 decades of coaching, have some longevity, have a real understanding of the craft of coaching. And there are people around like that, but I don't even think a lot of people would know their names, to be honest with you. But it's exciting, and it's great that those coaches, 2 of those coaches from those franchises are taking up opportunities to go abroad and potentially come back, and look for higher honours of coaching the Ferns one day. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see who steps into those roles.
It's absolutely brilliant to see Kerry getting this opportunity in Brisbane, and be interesting also to see if it's a bit of a poison chalice, that job, or if she can make something of it, because it's been very clear that the last 2 coaches there have struggled. And Dion, I think the criticism of them has been exactly what you're saying, that they're top tier players who've come straight into coaching at the highest level. And I know that Lois Muir used to be big on that as well. She said you had to do your time. Interestingly, Bridge, I don't know if you guys heard this, but I heard Yvette McCausland-Jury interviewed this week, and she said that her time in netball isn't done. And I'm thinking, since she's just down the road from the Stars, would she be a person who could get back on the court? Also, Donna Wilkins, I think, would be really interesting with her connections in the Deep South. I really rate Selby Rickett. She's fantastic as well. So, and I think Julie Seymour should get a chance at the tactics. So I think we've got some depth there. I'd keep Rob Wright where he is, Bridget.
Yeah. I think that Tia Winakere as a new coach has probably needed Rob, and she has been very complimentary about the support that he has given her.
I wanted to ask Dion what he thought about the men's series, because I thought it was fantastic, just some really entertaining games, and I really enjoyed it. So I hope we can see more of that.
Yeah, it would be good to get some sort of competition going there. You know, even if it was just like one round, I think it would be really cool. Not just with those two teams, but with the whole country. Well, each franchise putting forward a team. Yeah, I thought it was good. I liked the addition of the 2-point shot as well. But
yeah, everyone's talking like it's a foregone conclusion, the 2-point shot for next season, just as much as it is that Weki's going to the New South Wales Swifts. So
yeah. It's so funny with that 2-point shot, because when it was introduced to Australia in 2020, it was controversial, and over here we were kind of sitting here smugly and thinking, oh, you guys are silly. And a lot of the players spoke out against it and all that stuff. You know, after 4 years, people have started to get used to it. Like, that has desensitized people in New Zealand. If this had come up 4 years ago, there'd be outrage over here. But I think because the Australian competition has run it, we're all a bit desensitized here and just like, oh, okay, yeah. But the interesting thing is going to be whether it's for the full game or just for those last 5 minutes, because Dame Nolene might not be too keen on that, because at the international level, obviously it's the traditional 1-point game. So she might prefer that it's just the last 5 minutes of each quarter.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the last 5 minutes. Yeah.
I think it's such a great level. If you look at the game, we've got to do something in netball to make the game more exciting. I just think that, for instance, if you took the Steel this year, if they had someone that just could hit from that range consistently, you know, the games that they got blown out by would be a lot more closer. And yeah, I think it's the way of the future, and I think that we need to evolve our game to keep crowd interest.
It still hurts a little part of me in the core of me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't 100% let go of the traditional game. It's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's reasons why it's been thought about and introduced, and I think those reasons are really valid.
The best, most logical reason is that it can be boring when you've got someone like 6'5", like Janelle Fowler. I don't enjoy watching those West Coast Fever games.
Yeah, that's right.
That is the best reason for it. Okay, let's have a look at the Silver Ferns. So around 30 Silver Ferns trialists, I mean, that's about half the players in the ANZ Premiership, will be named 2 days after the grand final, so next Tuesday. And following trials, Silver Ferns squads will be announced on the 22nd of August. Selectors are likely to name 5 to 6 players in each third of the court. Well, that's what they've done in the last few years. So I've asked you to name 6 attackers, 6 defenders, and 6 mid-quarters. Let's start with the shooting end. I'm just going to tell you who my first 4 were, who were really easy. So Grace Weke, Amelia Encarnacio, Amelia Walmsley, Martina Salmon. Those were my 4 easy ones. Have you guys got those 4?
Yes, I have, Bridget.
Dion?
I don't have Salmon, and I've got my reasons for that. I think she's an incredible player and does deserve to be there, but I think she needs to be our next goal attack. So I think she needs time at the ANZ in that goal attack role. I think we're okay for shooters, but I think we need to be looking ahead for a consistent all-round goal attack.
Yeah. I am very interested to see how she goes at goal attack. I guess I think I've seen enough that should give it a good crack already.
Yeah.
Yeah, Penny, so you've got those 4. My other 2 were really hard. So I've gone with Saviour Tui. She's dynamic. She's benefited hugely from playing with Emilianne Ignacio, and she's just a bit different. The other shooter I've gone for is Georgia Heffernan, so up from the development squad. I think that what will weigh really heavily in her favour was her incredible debut against Australia earlier this year, and she played a full game at goal attack. She held her own despite dealing with 3 different Australian defenders who tried to make her life hell. And I think that if she didn't have to carry so much load down at the steel this season, her 77% shooting stats would be a lot higher. So that means there's no room for Maya Wilson and Tiana Maturo. Tiana's great. She's such a little general down there, but is she putting up enough shots at the moment? And Maya Wilson, I just don't know if there's any room for her. I mean, she only got 38 minutes on court across the series against England and Australia post-World Cup last year once Walmsley got into the team. Who have you gone with your other 2?
No, I haven't gone for Georgia Heffernan. I've actually gone for Malasala because I thought she went quite well earlier in the year with the Silver Ferns. And I remember they picked Vui, but they didn't use her. Is that correct?
Phil Vui?
Yeah, for that last tour to England. And Malasala.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago.
So, I'll give Malasala another go. Dion?
Well, controversy. I've gone Nweki. I've gone Wilson simply because she's proven that she can play inside and outside the circle. She's got the highest shooting stats this year in the ANZ. Ignacio, obviously, Walmsley, and I've gone Vui and Tui, not because they rhyme, but because I think they should be there.
Yeah. So, Penny, you had Malasala and Phil Vui. Is that right?
No, I had Tui actually. I had Saviour Tui.
It's the Tui and Vui thing that's confusing us.
Yeah. But I did have Vui and cross her out, so it was a close run thing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's head to the midcourt. I think the incumbents, Maddie Gordon, Kate Heffernan and Whitney Souness pick themselves. With Mila really Buchanan recovering from an ACL injury, I see Souness is probably seen as the New Zealand starting wing attack. Peta Tuiava, it's easy to forget that she is actually a current member of the Silver Ferns squad. She was named in August last year, but hasn't been included in any of the series since being named in the squad because she did not meet fitness standards. But if she does meet the fitness standards, she's in my list to make this year's squad. So that's the incumbents: Whitney, Peta, Maddie, Kate Heffernan, the incumbents. So that leaves couple positions. So I'm going to say Kimi Orapoi gets back in the team with really Buchanan injured. She's elevated her game this year. She picks up a lot of ball defensively at centre. As a 6th player, I'm really not sure about the 6th player, but I've penciled in Claire O'Brien. She's provided a lot of stability for the Magic in the attacking end at wing attack and could be very useful for the Silver Ferns. Penny, who have you gone with?
Well, might be controversial, but I'm calling Lokatui a midcourter here because I see her as a wing defence at international level. So I'm going to throw her in the mix. And what about Claire Kirsten? Is she done? I think she's been so good for the Pulse this year. So there are 2 more that I'd add in, Bridget.
Dion, what about you?
Yeah, 100% with you, Penny. I had Lokatui in the mid as well, but I've moved her over to the D end.
Yeah, I've got her in my D because that's where she was in last year's Silver Ferns squad under the defensive bracket. But yeah. I don't care where she is; she just must be in the team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got Souness, Gordon, Kate Heffernan. I had Mila, but with that injury, so I've gone Tuiava, Boy, and O'Brien as well. Now, I guess in terms of Kimi Ora, just work rate, repeated effort, her defense, as a centre is she's amazing defensively. But it gives the Ferns options on whoever we're playing, whether she fits in there or not. But yeah, they're my middies.
Yeah, can't complain with that. I guess technically speaking, Shannon Saunders and Gina Crampton are both eligible. because Gina played enough games in the ANZ this year to make her eligible. Shannon Saunders has that injury, and you mentioned Claire Kirsten, Penny, but Claire Kirsten retired from the game, a year ago, and I agree, she's been brilliant this year, but I can't see her wanting to commit to a 3-year World Cup cycle. And when you think of Ellie Bird, you look at what she did this year, would not look out of place in the Silver Ferns, but do I see her committing to a 3-year World Cup cycle? Not at all. She retired at the end, and she's talked about how it's been so much, she's been playing so much better and she's enjoying it so much more because there's been no pressure. So I don't think she's interested. I don't think she'd want to, which is fine. Right, let's talk about the defensive end. So the shoo-ins for me are obviously Kelly Jackson, Kartenberger, the two most consistent defenders in New Zealand. Then I've gone with Paris Lokatui, wing defence, goal defence slide. I've also gone with Georgia Takarangi as the new player in the team. I just think she's playing her best netball. And Paris Mason. So that's 5. Yeah, the 6th one is really, really hard. And earlier in the season, I would not have picked Phoenix Karaka. I think she was having a quiet season, but since switching to goalkeep, seems to have found a spark. Yeah, so I've got Phoenix Karaka. So that means, it's a tough one, that Kate Burley misses out. And I think, God, if any player deserves an opportunity in the black dress, it's Kate Burley. And that's why I was also questioning Phoenix Karaka. Do we really think that in 3 years' time she's going to be one of the top 4 defenders in New Zealand when you've got the likes of Paris Mason and you've got Cara Stith and Catherine Hall at the Mystics? For this year at least, I think the selectors will probably like experience and want to retain her for at least this year. Penny, who have you gone with?
Well, this was the real benefit of having Lokatui in the midcourt.
Yeah.
That you can fit in some of these new defenders, and I think we've got to throw them all in there. And you make a really good point about this 3-year cycle. So in that case, you've got to have Stithe and you've got to have Hall. And then Karaka just gets in there. So I also had no place for Kate Burley either. And obviously you've got Jackson, Mason and Berger as the established ones. But I think that now is really the time to get Stithe and Hall in there.
Yeah, I was grappling with that as well, Stithe and Hall. And I thought, well, definitely development squad and maybe next year. But I don't know, that's a tough one. Dion, who have you gone with?
Yeah, I guess when I think to both your points about if we're looking towards that World Cup, if you look at the last World Cup we won, we had a couple of fairly mature defenders in that team, and so for that reason I've gone with Jackson, Berger, Karaka, Stithe, Burley, and Lokatui.
Yep, can't complain with that either.
So, I guess to my point is,
did you have Mason?
No, if I had Paris Lokatui, and if looking at my team, I could quite easily slide her into mid. Mason would definitely be the next cap off the ring.
Yeah, it's like a Tetris puzzle.
Yeah, I think I was looking at stats as well, and they're all sort of, I was going off the stats. Takarangi, yes, I agree. She had a great season, but she's very familiar with who was behind her. How would she go with someone that she's not so familiar with behind her?